I'm pressing on the upward way, new heights I'm gaining every day. Still praying as I onward bound, Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand by faith on heaven's stable land, a higher plane than I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Well, good morning. It's a Monday morning. I hope you've had a great weekend. I hope you've been blessed this weekend. I want to share a few thoughts with you this morning on Monday morning. You know, when runners run a race, they've got one thing in mind when they're running that race, and that's the finish line. That's their goal. That's exactly where they're headed. It's the only thing that they can think about. And it was with this thought in mind that the Apostle Paul wrote to the Corinthians. He said, "Do you know that in a race all runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize." 1 Corinthians 9:24. The word "run" in that verse is the Greek word trecho, which means to run and indicates a constant and continuous pace. This word trecho often depicts runners who ran a foot race in a huge stadium before crowds of adoring fans. In order for the runner to run successfully and to finish triumphantly, every ounce of his strength and every ounce of his complete attention were required during the time of that race. Focused on that finish line, giving it everything he had. Paul had this example in mind as he wrote this verse. Just as it takes full concentration and a stride that is paced for a runner to run a long distance, Paul now uses the word trecho to tell us that if we're going to run our race as God expects us to, then it will require 100% of our attention, and it'll mandate that we learn how to run at a constant and continuous pace. There's a science to running. There's a strategy to running a race. So you start too quickly, you can run out of energy too quickly and not be able to finish as strong as you could. If you start too slowly, you'll never be able to catch up to be able to win that race. And so there's a strategy to it, to start out in a good pace that you can maintain, that you can maintain your energy and your strength to be able to finish the race as strong as you possibly can. And those things apply even in our spiritual walk as well. We have to be careful of those things, and those are some of the things that Paul was getting at in this illustration from 1 Corinthians. You know, the other thing is you want to get that constant, and continuous stride, and the way that applies is that we could try today and then stop tomorrow and then give it another shot a week later, but what's going to happen is we're just going to fall behind and not be where we should and not be growing as we're supposed to grow. And that's why it's important to have that continuous and constant pace as we go. And so once we're in a race, like we're in a race, our spiritual race, we have to run ferociously. We have to run with everything we have. We have to stay in it for a long-term basis. We have to learn to pace ourselves so that we can stay consistent and avoid wearing ourselves out, and avoid falling behind as well. Paul tells us that we're to run until we obtain. The word obtain is the Greek word katalamha, which is a compound of the words kata and lambano. Excuse me. The word kata describes something that is coming downward, and the word lambano means to take or seize something. When they're compounded together into one word, it becomes kata lambano, and that becomes a very powerful word when you put those together. For example, the word kata lambano can picture someone who has found something that he has searched for his entire life. Rather than lose it or pass up the opportunity to possess it, he will pounce on it with all his might, latching hold of it and seizing it with joy, doing everything possible to get a hold of that thing. That's the word picture that we get with that combination word kata lambano, or as it's translated in our Bible sometimes, to obtain. And so once again, this word can portray a runner who runs fiercely, using every ounce of his energy that he as he strains forward toward the finish line, and at last he reaches the goal and he crosses the finish line, and now the prize is his, but he's given everything that he had to get to that finish line first. He's put every ounce of energy and concentration and devotion into getting there, and he won the reward because he put his whole heart and his whole soul and his whole body into obtaining that goal. And so in light of the words trecho and katalambano found in this verse in Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24, it carries this idea. Don't you know that those who compete in a foot race run with all their might and all their strength against the other runners, but only one wins the competition and takes the prize? In light of this, run with all the might you can muster. Go the distance and pace yourself to make sure you have enough energy to get to the finish line, where you will finally latch hold of and possess that which you have been so passionately pursuing. And at the end of Paul's own life, he wrote, I have finished my course. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7. He latched on, he obtained that which he had pursued so passionately in the course of his life. He ran ferociously and he competed hard. He triumphantly exclaimed that he had done it. His race was finished. He had given his spiritual race all that he had. He had run with all his might. All the might he could muster. He had run so consistently over the years that he had finished a winner. All those years of being concentrated and focused finally paid off. If Paul had approached his race with an attitude of lazy complacency, the prize would have gone to another person. He wouldn't have finished his race. He had to run to obtain, and he spent his life doing just that. He ran to obtain, and indeed he did obtain. Paul looked at his divine destiny that lay before him like a runner looks at the finish line. Rather than approach his spiritual race lazily and half-heartedly, Paul did everything within his power to preach the gospel, no matter what was happening to him. If it meant getting a job on the side in order to be able to preach, that's what Paul did. Acts chapter 18, verse 3. If it meant becoming a Jew in order to preach to the Jews, that's what Paul did in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 20. And if it meant becoming as those without law to win those who were without law, that's what Paul did. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 21. He became all things to all men in order that he might win some to the Lord. 1 Corinthians 9, 22. Paul suffered hardship, persecution, lack, cold, hunger, nakedness, homelessness, trouble from false brethren, trouble from true brethren, in the city, in the wilderness, and even at sea. He was beaten, afflicted by persecution, and troubled by religious people. And yet Paul never lost sight. He never lost sight of the fact that he was called of God, and that he would one day account for what he did with that calling. The finish line for Paul was always before him, and he kept one thing foremost in his mind and thinking: I must obtain the prize. I must fulfill the purpose for which I was born. I must achieve the plan of God for my life. And so, for you and I, if we want to achieve God's will for our life, then there isn't any room for any other attitude than one of boldness and determination to keep running toward the goal, with your eyes fixed on the finish line, no matter what happens. This attitude alone will take us through every obstacle, every attack from the enemy, and ultimately bring you to a place that God desires for your life. As we look at that finish line, as we look at that goal, we set our eyes on that and give it all we have, 100%. Like Paul, we have to have resolve and strength of will and determination and backbone, high morale, courage, devotedness, persistence, tenacity, and just an unrelenting mindset that I am going to do what God called me to do, no matter what else is going on around me or in my life. And so we have to kind of put our foot down and take a stand as a no-nonsense kind of person who puts our whole heart into our calling. Sitting around hoping for something to happen just isn't going to produce anything for any of us. And sometimes we find ourselves doing that, and it's a little bit frustrating. What we have to do is jump in like Paul. We have to jump in the race. We have to fix our eyes on the goal. We have to run with all our might to the finish line so that we can take the prize that God has set there for us. And so maybe it's time for you and I, both of us, to take the bull by the horns and hold on for dear life all the way to the goal. Who knows where it'll take us? Who knows where God will call us, or who He will call us to? He is calling us constantly to to our one, to somebody that we can share the gospel with. And so let's agree to make a decision together that we're going to run the race, that we're going to go the distance, and that we're going to finish first place. So why not get started today? I hope this is encouraging to you. I hope it helps you to kind of make that decision and get in the race and start running it with all your might. Love you guys. Hope you have a great week this week. We'll see you next time.